How you doing, buddy? See you. All right,
She's getting ready to gavel him out of the front.
Oh no, Mike, you can pop. 30
I'm gonna be
seconds.
in the line of fire in case it splinters.
Not true.
Yes.
Her stuff.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to those that are tuning in online. Before I start to call to order, I wanted to let you know, before if you wanted to speak, Sherry had the forms, but they're now in the back. So please make sure you fill out one of those if you'd like to speak. If right now you're not certain and something comes up through the meeting, I'm very flexible about going to get that at that time and turn it in. So thank you. So Sherry, can you please do a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Miller?
I'm here, thank you.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Present.
Councilmember Bryan?
Here.
Councilmember Frizzalone?
Here.
And Councilmember Flex?
Here.
Thank you, Sherry. Reverend Bob?
Thank you.
If you're able, please stand and join in this invocation. Let us pray. Holy and Almighty One, you have gathered us once again for the purpose of business of the city of Daytona Beach Shores. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as friends and neighbors to conduct this business and to be community and neighbors together. As we have had the opportunity this past weekend to celebrate our mothers, we take this opportunity tonight to celebrate the contribution of all women to the making of a great city here in Daytona Beach Shores. Women who have served as elected officials, women who serve on the staff of this city, women who serve in law enforcement and safety. We thank you for each woman who has made a contribution through volunteerism, and all who have made a contribution towards the betterment of all of us. We give you thanks, and we thank them as well. Be with us tonight as we are led by our mayor and as we are led by our city council to make these decisions. Bring your wisdom and guidance upon it as we come together in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you for that wonderful message. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have a couple of employee service awards today. So Detective Sergeant Jessica Long, with 10 years, could you please come forward? Is Lucas coming in?
Lucas is somewhere running around. So I actually have two awards tonight. Jessica here. Talk about Mother's Day. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Lucas.
Can you say hi?
Doesn't seem possible, but Jessica's been here for 10 years. She came here, didn't have a baby, I'll tell you that. She's worked her way up. She's in charge of our detective bureau. She's a sergeant. She does a great job every day. She's managing a family, her job, her career. Wonderful employee. And I'm very happy to have her. I was reflecting that 10 years has gone so fast, I can't remember. I remember when she walked in my office. I mean, literally, and it seemed like yesterday, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, time goes fast. So I have this proclamation from the city, and of course the gold diamond, what is it, earrings this time, Mike?
Yeah, right.
Diamond earrings? I forget.
You can't fool me, Chief.
Yeah, I know. But if somebody, anybody taking, Michael, are you going to take a, who's going to take a picture?
Here, boss.
Captain Fowler's over here. Come here, Lucas. Let's get a picture.
You want to take a picture with Mommy? Say cheese?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Big.
Look, say cheese.
Say cheese. What a cutie. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Jessica.
Daddy's
Okay, and next we have mechanic David Rogers with 5 years of service. Fred, will you?
Come on, David.
Is he here?
No, Chief does it.
Oh, the chief does that.
He works for everybody. David takes care of the whole city, all our vehicles, all our lawnmowers, tractors, whatever we have. He works out of our garage. And
Thank you, David.
David came here. David came here 5 years ago, took over, and has really modernized everything that we do in the mechanical side. We used to get complaints about the repairs and things aren't done properly. And we don't get complaints. David does a great job. The funny thing is, David and Jessica used to work together in a dispatch center. David's real forte was communications for a long time. And many, many years ago, how many years ago did you work here?
Back in 91.
He worked here as a dispatcher. And he's come back, but he's a wonderful employee.
He
And
knows where.
I truly am blessed with these employees. And as you can see, they came by to say hi. But David keeps everything running like it should. So congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
You don't get diamond earrings.
Wow. Nothing?
Before all of your staff leaves, I understand today, or this week is National Police Week. From myself and everyone on City Council and the staff, all the residents here, we just want to tell you how much we appreciate you. Every year at this time of year, we have a memorial service at what used to be the Lowman Cemetery, the Florida Memorial Cemetery. It's this Friday to honor all the officers that have been killed in the line of duty in Volusia County, and it's very moving at 8:30 there. So this is a big week for police around the country, and as you can read there, it's been horrible. It has not been the kind of year that I would have expected as a police officer, and it makes it very difficult. And some of these younger officers that we've got now, they're just starting off in this career, and they're coming in at a very, very awkward time, as you know. And the support of the council here, you cannot imagine how much that means to them, because they see that they want what they're appreciated rather than scorned, as it were. So I had
thank
the
you.
privilege of being the last one who swore in the last three,
Yeah.
and that was great. So again, thank you guys very much for everything you do. You're greatly appreciated. Next, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble, but the week before last was Municipal City Clerk Week. And I did do a proclamation for our city clerk, Sherry Schwab, that will want no recognition whatsoever. She is one of the hardest working people I know. Gets there early in the morning, works through her lunch, does a dual role of not only city clerk, but our HR director. So on behalf of the city council, Sherry, I want to let you know, I won't embarrass you by making you come up, but I want you to know how much we appreciate you and everything that you do. Thank you. Okay, next, we have our annual audit presentation. Kurt, will you be spearheading that? Or?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I think most of you will remember Yvonne from last year, so it's that time of year again for Yvonne Claiborne from Cartwright and Ingram to do the annual audit presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. Thank you for coming tonight.
Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is the annual audit presentation for the fiscal year.
Get to the mic, please.
Is it on?
I don't think it was on.
Can you hear in the back?
Okay, all right. This is the annual audit presentation for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2020. You all have your bound books with a nice, beautiful cover this year. This is beautiful. beautiful sunrise. So anyways, your CAFR, or I'm sorry, I should have actually changed that. The Government Finance Officers Association has asked us to change the acronym for your comprehensive annual financial report to your annual comprehensive financial report. So if you see on some of the slides, it'll say ACFR. We now say ACFR. There was some negative connotations to the pronunciation of that acronym, and so they've asked us to discontinue using out of respect for diversity and cultural sensitivity. So your financial statements are broken out into several sections: the introductory section, the financial section, which is your auditor's report, your management's discussion and analysis, and financial statements and notes, and your required supplementary information, your statistical sections, and then the compliance section, which is your reports on internal control and compliance. I always like to tell everybody, if you're only going to read one thing in this big, huge document, please read the management's discussion and analysis. That is what city staff prepares, and it's their analysis of the changes in the numbers between this year and the last fiscal year. We don't audit it, but we do review it to make sure it has accurate data and that the numbers are lining up with the audit report. But again, it's a nice summary or synopsis of what happened during the fiscal year, and it also provides some information about what's going to happen in the next year. The next document that's written by city staff is the transmittal letter, and that's in the front. And similarly, it has information that just kind of communicates how all this financial statement information flows into the management of the city. The audit report, which is on page 9, is what they call an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of audit assurance you can receive in an audit. It says that your financial statements in all material respects are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Your statement of net position, this is your full accrual accounting financial statements. It's not what you're seeing, it's not how you're budgeted, but once a year you get to see your full accrual numbers. You have an unrestricted net position of $7,560,000 in governmental activities and $8,745,000 in business type activities. In theory, if you were to take all of your assets, convert them to cash, pay all your bills, this is what you would be left over. These are those dollars that you have going forward on a full accrual basis that you have to make management decisions with. Your statement of net position, your largest liability after debt is your net pension liability. This year, that liability as of September 30 was $9,523,000, and that represents the city's proportionate share of the Florida retirement system. This is an increase of $2.4 million, $2.5 million over fiscal year 19, primarily because the city moved all of their general employees into FRS during fiscal year 20. Of the city employees that moved their accounts, they had $2.7 million of funds from their defined contribution plans that were rolled into that Florida retirement system to purchase service time for previous history, so that when they retire, even if they were to retire in 2 years, it's as if they've been in the FRS for many years, for that time that they've been with the city. In order to get those service years purchased up, the city did contribute an additional $175,000. The statement of activities on page 28 through 29, again, is a full accrual accounting. It's formatted in such a way to show you how much your activities of the city are supported by general revenues. In other words, your charges for services, you don't charge for services for public and safety as a general rule. So your police officers, your police and fire safety, your public safety is supported by tax dollars. You have other general government activities that are supported by tax dollars. So for those dollars that are not supported by specific fees, there was $11 million and change supported by those taxes, those intergovernmental revenues, which is like your state revenue share, your sales tax revenues, and investment earnings. Your business type activities, which is your sewer fund, had an operating income of $173,000 this year. Your fund financial statements, which is what you're used to seeing on a budgetary basis, they start on page 30. Your unrestricted unassigned fund balance in the general fund is $111,000. That's that number that rolls forward as the carry forward into your next year's budget. That's down from $13,681,000, which sounds like a lot, but we got to remember a couple of things that I'm going to cover right now. Your current year expenditures included $700,000 of new capital assets. It also included $7.8 million of debt service. There is no new debt. The total principal payments in the current year for business type activities and your general fund activities was $8.3 million. It included payoff of your 2005 debt, that was $4.8 million of it, and your state revolving loan of $1 million. So as of September 30, your sewer fund is debt-free. Congratulations. You should be congratulated. Your governmental debt outstanding is only $6.6 million as of September 30. Again, there was that tranche of money that was paid out in fiscal year 20 and another tranche in fiscal year 21 to pay down that debt so that you guys can have some ability to leverage some activity going forward. So there was this planned activity to pay down, and that was why there was a lot of that movement down in the unrestricted unassigned fund balance, but it was planned. The self-insurance claims saw a slight increase this year. It's been seeing big, huge increases, but this was only $990,000 as compared to $914,000. Your claims liability as of September 30 is actually down to $84,000, down from $91,000, and that's your incurred but not reported, that actuarial estimate of what you don't know about, plus the actual claims activity. So that liability is actually coming down, so it looks like we're getting a handle on those self-insurance claims. The proportionate share of the Florida retirement system, the discount rate was decreased from $7 million to $6.8 million. Again, like I mentioned, the total liability, which includes that health insurance subsidy, is $9.5 million. There's an account called a deferred outflow of resources, and that's $3.2 million, $3.3 million related to the pension plan. That's the easiest way for me to describe that, because deferred outflows is kind of a funny number. It's like prepaid expenses. So what happens is things are very volatile. So insurance or interest rates go up and down, and so they predict, they set your contributions based on this prediction of what's going to happen. It doesn't happen exactly the way they want, and it creates these differences. Well, instead of hitting your expenses all at once and having these huge volatile changes in your expenses, these items that have these deferred activities where there's changes in assumptions or where they underestimated how much investment income they were going to get, they sit in these deferred inflows and outflows, and they get amortized into the expenses over a period of time to help even out the expense flow. So again, these sit out there as prepaid expenses, and they'll be expensed out into the city's expenses over the next, it's 5 to 15 years, I believe. Those changes are related to changes in assumptions. So, they make an assumption about how many people are actually going to fully retire in the Florida retirement system. They talk about how many of them are going to continue within the system for a period of time, and and the mortality ages, those kind of things change, and those changes in assumption create these differences. Again, we talked about the differences between projected and actual earnings, and there are some differences because they set your contribution rates a year in advance, and then actual things happen, and so that creates some deferrals. Your internal control and compliance reports on page 109. We gain an understanding of your controls just for planning and performing our audit procedures. We're not actually providing you an opinion on your internal controls, but if we identify things as we look at this process, we'll let you know. We didn't identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and we also noted no non-compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, or grants. Your Auditor General, the Florida Auditor General, requires some additional disclosures. That's on page 111 of the report. There were no prior year comments, and there are no current year comments. Again, we look for things like, certain statutory rules that you're following. We do a financial condition assessment. We look for financial emergency activities. And we have to rep that, no, we didn't see anything that rises to the level of what the statutes call a financial emergency. We performed a financial condition assessment, and we felt like the city met the criteria to be considered financially sound. And then the final report in there is page 113. That's where we test the city's compliance with the investment policies. And that's a specific Florida statute that says you have to have certain investment policies in place, and if not, you have to follow Florida statutes, and we test compliance with that, and there were no instances of non-compliance noted. With that, how'd I do, Kurt?
Wow, great.
I had a time limit. With that, I'll entertain any questions. Yes?
You know, we're limited in what we can invest because of the restrictions by law.
Yes.
And absent any capital expenditures where we're going to actually incur additional debt, so now that we're debt-free, do you anticipate in the future when we have inflation that the revenue that we bring in is going to still give us enough of a cushion where we'll be able to have to keep up with everything's going to get more expensive?
Right.
But will the ability to generate more revenue is limited? Will we be okay 5, 7 years down the road, 10 years down the road?
I think with careful, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball.
No, and I'm not.
Careful
putting you on
fiscal
the spot.
management, you guys have always been conservative in your fiscal management. And then actually, you were stepping a little bit outside your comfort zone, I think, to even get the payoffs on the debt to get debt-free. But what that does is it provides you with the ability to borrow money at very cheap rates, because governments can borrow at cheap rates if you need to down the road. And like I said, it's cheap money. So do I foresee that you're going to run into a situation where you're going to have a problem? Right now, there's nothing that indicates that you're going to be running down that road, because the decreases that I see in fund balances, you're still generating operating income in your sewer fund. It's always moving in the positive direction. You seem to have enough money in the sewer fund to look for infrastructure improvements. So, based on what we know now, you have enough in reserves in place to do what you need to do to continue forward without any, raising taxes in a drastic manner.
Right, okay.
So, again, I can't predict,
No, it's hard.
It is hard to
I know we
predict.
had some anticipated expenditures for the sewer or the improvements or something, lift stations or what have you, but with no debt,
Yeah.
we'll see how we are.
And I do know that the city we've talked to city staff about, maybe down the road looking at different investment options that may generate more money than where you're currently invested. Right now it's just such a weird market, so it's hard to say you're in the wrong place. Everything we've ever seen happen over the last, I can't remember the last time I actually saw a negative number that I was like, wow, that wasn't what I expected to see. Because usually we hear in the budget, we have a plan to purchase, and so we know it's going to happen. I didn't see any unexpected items take place, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else?
Could you discuss pension liability in a little more detail? We had an increase of over $2 million in pension liability, right?
Well, but that was because you moved all your general employees in.
I know why it was, but the bottom line is that we didn't have an increase, right?
Well, yeah, but you basically moved it from one pension plan to another. Because you had $2.7 million in the defined benefit plans that were not on the books, the defined contribution plans that were not on the books, and you moved it into a defined contribution plan.
It was a transfer.
There was no net increase in pension liability?
Well, you see, the defined contribution plans are not a liability of the city. They go in, when you make the contributions, they go in and they remain in those accounts for the benefit of the employees. When they moved them into the FRS, what that did, they took 2.7 and moved it into the FRS to cover, and it covered all but 175 of their prior year services, which is really good. But the reason it increased your FRS liability is it increased your proportionate share, because you now own more of the FRS proportionate share. So, as a net, if you had booked the numbers for the defined contribution, you're talking about a difference of about $200,000.
And then the total liability of was it $9 million, if I remember correctly?
$9.5 million, yes.
And what does that, can you explain what that really means? Does that mean that we're going to, over a certain number of period of years, we're going to have to pay that money out if all the actuarial assumptions come true?
What that number says is, as of September 30, if FRS had closed their doors and said you have to pay all the pension liabilities that you owe, that's how much that was not covered by the investments of the FRS. That's the unfunded portion, your proportionate share of the unfunded piece. But it's a moving target, because every year, as investments perform, that number's gonna go up and down.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, Yvonne, we thank you very much. So it sounds like everything that you've talked about, we're doing financially pretty well. Yes.
This is always my favorite audit presentation, because it's always good news.
Appreciate that. If there's no other questions, we thank you very much for coming with us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, approval of the minutes from April 13th. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes as is?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second. Polite second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? If not, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Frizzlo?
Yes.
Councilmember Pelagus?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We do have 5 items on there. Do I hear a motion to approve that consent agenda as is?
Motion to approve as is.
I'll second. Polite seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a roll on that motion?
Councilmember Frizzlo?
Yes.
Councilmember Pelagus?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, next we'll report of the city attorney. Attorney Carey, what do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Since the last meeting, the city attorney's office has negotiated an estoppel letter with the lender for the Halifax Health project. Andrea is here to discuss that when it comes up on the agenda. We reviewed and negotiated an agreement for electric vehicle charging equipment with FPL. We have performed legal research and revised legal opinion to the finance director regarding a sewer assessment. Provided legal advice regarding requested signage for the project at 119 Lot Avenue. Spoke with, on a couple occasions, the city attorney of Daytona Beach regarding their micro mobility device ordinance, and provided some additional legal research in advance of this meeting, and reviewed and revised 2 ordinance for land development regulations.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Carey. What questions do we have? Okay, if not, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the city manager report. Mike, I'm not sure you had anything for us. I know you're...
My Madam Mayor is a little different than most city manager reports. I thought maybe what I would do is ask the council to just kind of take stock on some of the things that have been accomplished over the years, not just by this council, but by many other councils. We have a ton of new facilities that we brought online in the last 10, 15 years. We've had a lot of success with our homegrown businesses. In a lot of cases, you got the Crack Day, you got Mike's Galley, you got Daytona Diner. Trace Leches, I think, is going to continue in that same vein. And we've also seen and been able to keep our tax rate low because we've been able to consistently redevelop areas within the city. Because as most cities, as you know, the way they grow is to expand. We do not have that ability to expand. We do have the ability to expand higher, and in some cases we've done that, but we also have the ability to redevelop properties that may be distressed and may not have been in a good market viable tax base. And I just wanted to say that I give the city council a great deal of credit in giving me and then allowing me to give staff the freedom to explore some of these new ideas and try to bring them back to the city and do things in a meaningful way and a long-term type solution so that we don't get caught, as Councilmember Blight alluded to, possibly with inflation or with unexpected expenses. So I just want to tell the council, I know you get bogged down in the day-to-day decisions of everything that goes on, and it may be the flavor of the week or the problem of the month, but there's a lot of long-term things that have been done that I give you guys a lot of credit for, and I thank you for your support in getting those things done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for our city manager? Okay, if not, we do not have any old business this evening. And 11A, the special exception, will be continued to the next meeting, May 25th. So that brings us on to the consideration of telecommunication contracts. Item B, David, would you be the one that would speak to us about this? Thank you so much. We don't get to hear from you very often.
No, ma'am.
You're behind the scenes, getting everything done.
Mr. Fix-It.
Yeah.
Just 1 second here. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here today because we have reached the end of our telecommunications contract with Spectrum Enterprise. This contract was established back in 2015, and it covers our internet services, our business phones, as well as our analog dialers, which cover our lift stations, our fax machines, and other ancillary services, kind of like intox machines with our public safety department. Give you a quick review of what we currently have. The contract was established back in May of 2015 with Bright House Networks, prior to them becoming them becoming Spectrum after the purchase of Charter in May 2016. The contract was established for 72 months and is set for expiration on the 19th. We have communicated with Spectrum, and they are willing to hold off on any terminations of any contracts until we've made a decision. This does include our hosted voice business lines, internet fiber services, and analog phone and dialer services. Back in 2018, when the Shores Community Center did come online, it was added to the contract and co-termed with the original 2015 contract. This contract includes 74 business phone lines that you would see at everybody's desks, a dedicated fiber connection on both sites for City Hall and Public Safety, and provider-owned network equipment. This includes all of the back-end network equipment needed to power the phones and to use the phones for any kind of communication. In addition, that also includes a dedicated line to Spectrum's back-end network without having to traverse the public internet. The internet connection that we currently have is a 50 megabit per second upstream and downstream symmetric line at Public Safety and City Hall. Now, this was established before we added on a lot of our extra services, such as council and meeting streaming, cameras at the tennis courts, pickleball courts, and the dog park, and I think our citizen self-service, which also traverses that network. And then also our analog phone line system, which provides the telephone dialer systems for if there's an issue at the sewer lift stations, the elevator emergency lines, and any fax machine services that are used in any of our departments. So our current contract right now that will be expiring is around $4,625 every month. This does fluctuate based off of usage and taxes, which include long-distance minutes, and annually costs around $55,500. So when we were reviewing what we wanted to do with the next contract, we decided that we did want to maintain the phone service as close as possible. There are no expected changes to adding or removing any lines. But we did want to upgrade our internet service from a 50 meg to a 500 meg service to prepare for any additional services that we did want to bring online. Maybe adding additional cameras that would be streamed out to the internet, maybe more usage of public Wi-Fi in parks. This is looking forward over what will be a 3-year period. We also want to downgrade the connection over at City Hall and change it to a backup service instead of as a separate primary service. As it is currently right now, each site maintains a primary connection of 50 by 50. This would cause all connections at City Hall to be routed through the public safety network, and if that were to fail, would then have everything rerouted through City Hall. And then for the analog phone service changes, we do want to remove 2 of the lines which are currently unused, which were originally part of the older SCADA system. So we did receive proposals from both AT&T and Spectrum. We did go through and review and see what they were offering based off of what we requested. AT&T, their phone service, the business hosted voice side, would be on state contract. However, their analog and internet services would be a commercial contract. So it would in fact be 2 separate contracts. The hosted voice options that they provided us were purchasing the phones outright and paying for usage services or leasing the phones. In AT&T's instance, their phone network actually would run over city-owned equipment. They will provide no network back-end equipment and would have to be managed by city staff. In addition, that phone data would also have to traverse the same internet connection as the rest of the city's data, which would include any of the public safety data that would be traveling, any backups that were being uploaded, live council meetings, any of that would be traversing over the same network. It would be subject to congestion if there was any problem. Spectrum is offering 3 options: a maintenance, which would include maintaining the current phones in place and upgrading the contract to their new options, purchasing new phones, and leasing phones. Again, Spectrum's network does offer own network equipment in the back end, so they would provide that. They would also provide support and maintenance on both all of the equipment, as well as a dedicated phone fiber connection at City Hall and Public Safety as it is right now that would not be subject to the rest of the network's data congestion. So here's what the proposals are. We have in here the current Spectrum contract, which is $4,627 per month. Again, it fluctuates based off of the taxes. AT&T's proposal is a monthly cost for purchasing at $4,042, but includes a $17,368 non-recurring charge for the purchase of the phones and warranties. When we looked at it, over the course of the 36-month contract, that would be about a total of $162,833. When it comes to their leasing prices, their monthly recurring cost is $4,573 with a 36-month value of $169,056. Again, this does not include any network equipment. This does not include a separate internet line or separate phone connectivity line to keep it separate from our network. Now, Spectrum did also provide the 3, one of which is the maintenance contract, which just includes the upgrading of the contract and no changing of any phones. It would include the upgrading of the fiber service, though. In that case, it would be $4,627 per month with a total contract worth of $166,575. Spectrum also did provide purchase and lease contracts. The purchase one would include an $11,110 non-recurring charge to purchase the phones. Now, at the end of that contract, we would be able to maintain those phones as long as Spectrum did continue to support them, or if they did change that out, though, we would have to purchase new phones at the end. The total worth of that contract would be $177,685. And then finally, the leasing contract, which is the most similar to the one that we have currently, is $4,840 per month with a total contract value of $174,243. So we looked at all of these options, and as you can tell, our biggest issue is we want to minimize downtime. The problem is that when we go switching contracts with a different service, they do have to port phone numbers, they do have to change IP addresses, network connectivity lines, and the question becomes, which do you change first? Do you change your internet line? Do you change your phone line? And if we switch to AT&T, we would run into the issue where if they switch the hosted voice before they switch Spectrum, we would be traversing our AT&T phones over Spectrum's network, which could cause problems. In addition to, we really do want to maintain that phone network separation between all of our equipment. I know whenever it comes to public safety, CJIS requirements, they do require a separate network be in place and does not allow their phone network to traverse the same as their data network. In addition, having that dedicated phone fiber connection does help if we do lose data connectivity, that we can still maintain phone connection, very useful whenever we do have a hurricane in the area. And then again, when we looked at the lease price versus the maintenance cost, our current phones are about 6 years old. Originally, there was a spoken agreement between Spectrum at the time that we were going to get our phones upgraded, and then after they switched over from Bright House to Spectrum, because it wasn't in the contract at the time, they did not follow through with that. So our current phones have been in place for about 6 years. We do see some issues from time to time with them. So moving over to a leased phone line, or leased phones, would allow us to upgrade those and get past some of those issues. So the next steps are, staff is seeking selection by the council of which of these contracts you'd like to go with. And then once we have a decision in place, we will sign the contract with the provider. Expect probably about 60 to 90 days for phone order and any infrastructure build out that would be required, and any phone porting that we need to do, with the conclusion of the move in about late July, August timeframe. Y'all have any questions regarding this?
Yeah, obviously, we have to rely on you, your expertise. It seems to me like cost is not the major factor. I wrote down your numbers, and it seems like there's $10,000 or $12,000 between the various choices. So I think that we really need to rely on your expertise to tell us which one is the best deal, because the money is not the factor. So we want performance and things that you consider to be important. Can you give us your thoughts on?
Ultimately, we did do recommend that we go with the Spectrum lease line contract. That does provide us with new equipment, the upgrades that are needed, and allows Spectrum to manage their equipment as well as having that separate line.
So that would be your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
This is a minor point. In comparing lease versus purchase, did you just assume that the residual value of purchased equipment was zero?
Well, currently, we have no purchase equipment on
No, I'm
hand.
saying comparing the options.
Compared, that was not taken into consideration during the 36-month contract, that we may come to that point when the 36-month contract is over, if we do purchase, and we can move it forward. The problem is whether or not whatever carrier we do decide when we review 36 months from now, whether or not they would accept that equipment.
But you basically implicitly assumed the residual value. You didn't have the residual value.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask Kurt too, is there any accounting difference between these two that makes it favor one over the other?
The only issue is a GASB thing, because we're leasing capital items, we now have to report it versus if we purchase it outright.
Depreciation.
Yeah, so really for us, it's 50-50. One thing I do want to point out, the reason Dave was here doing a presentation on this where you normally wouldn't see this is part of the request tonight is not just what direction are we going, but also because we didn't do a formal RFP, we need to ask council to waive that formal RFP procedure and allow Dave, based on what I'm hearing, to proceed with his recommended Spectrum purchase. So it's kind of a two-part question. And hopefully from the brief presentation, you can see the complexity of the issues with all the different systems that we have, and then trying to just do an RFP off straight low bid would have been a nightmare, trying to decide and then telling this one. You see the pricing, AT&T would have been low bidder, but it's not the best option for us in my opinion. And I don't believe in Dave's opinion, as he stated. So that's why we're asking for that waiver tonight of that RFP requirement.
Okay, well, I would suggest we do what we need to do. Can somebody give us guidance on what the proper procedure is? Do we need a motion to waive the RFP first?
John, how do you want to?
You can do it in a single motion. You can have a motion that waives the RFP requirement and also recommends or gives direction to staff to move forward on the option that the IT director has recommended.
I so move.
Second.
The only thing I'd like to know, could have we checked with Verizon as well, and you just felt like these were the top two that you want to look into?
Originally, we actually pursued AT&T because of the state contract. We've actually been pursuing them for about a year, trying to get more information about it. And I know there have been a lot of stop and starts due to that, mainly due to incorrect pricing that they provided us. Once we did get everything nailed down, a lot of effort was spent into trying to get AT&T in place. Now, what we're also looking for is a whole package, not just a piecemeal. So most of what I've seen whenever it came to Verizon, they can provide some of that, but not all of that.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, I think we're ready for a roll call on this.
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzlone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. David, thank you very much for all
Yeah,
your
great
work.
presentation.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah,
Nice job, Dave.
very good. We don't get to have you up here very often, so I'm seeing you there. Okay, next we're going to move on to the Halifax Urgent Care Facility Waiver Consent and a Estapo Agreement. Kurt, do you have something to say on this first, or is Andrea just coming up?
I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Carey. Their firm actually did the negotiation. That was a little out of my league, so they handled it, and the attorney from Halifax is here tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So what Kurt was really saying is that Becky handled the negotiation because it was very much in her area of expertise. As you may know, Becky, the firm is named, she's a named partner in the firm, and before we became a solely local government focused firm, the bulk of her practice was commercial real estate, commercial licensing, and so this was right up her alley as far as her area of expertise. So I passed it on to her after I identified some issues in my review to make sure that she agreed with me, and she did, and kind of took it over from there as far as negotiating with the lender. Essentially what this is it's a contract between the city and Halifax's lender to give the lender some assurances, since they can't just get a mortgage on the property. You can't mortgage City Hall, you also can't mortgage other city property. So this gives some assurances to the lender if Halifax were to default on their lease. And we removed the offensive provisions that either were not allowed under state law or were just bad policy for the city. And we're fortunately able to retain the lender's support to move forward and retain Halifax's funding. And I'll turn it over to Andrea at this point for her.
Thank you, Andrea. And somewhere in what you have to tell us, let us know if we're still on track for July 1st.
We are still on track for July 1st. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. As John said, this particular agreement is at the request of the lender. It was very extensively negotiated by Ms. Voss, and all of the revisions that she had asked for were accepted by the lender. And the primary purpose is just to sort of let the lender have the same rights under the lease, in full compliance with the lease and paying the rent and doing everything that the lease requires of us, should there be a default. Obviously, we certainly don't expect that to happen, but this type of waiver and consent is fairly customary in commercial lending. They do obviously only have a leasehold mortgage, so it does not grant any greater right to the lender than Halifax already has.
Okay, great. Do I have any questions for the attorney for Halifax? Hey, if not, we are so excited about having you here. Our residents are looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a real service to our community. And even is down near Ponds, Ormond, Daytona, so we're really looking forward to it.
And I did specifically check in, and they are targeting July 1, but as they said, with any construction or development project, that might be give or take, but certainly the first week of July.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening. Any other questions? Great, we're coming along here. Thank you so much, Andrea.
We need a motion and a second to approve
I'm sorry.
the agreement.
Do I hear a motion to accept this agreement?
I'll move to accept the waiver consent and estoppel agreement.
Second it. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, if no other discussion, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzlone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next section, which is the micro scooters that we've talked about for quite a while, so many different weeks here. I just want to say it's come to my attention that an email went out to a lot of our residents. I just want to say I hope no one on City Council was responsible for that email. that it did not originate there. I have no problem with anyone sending an email to any of our residents. What I do have a problem with is that it had a lot of incorrect information. So there are our residents getting tainted, incorrect information. So I'm just going to ask anyone, if they're going to send out an email, please take the time to fact find and make sure you're sending out correct information. That does not do any service to our our residents by having that go out there with incorrect information. And then lastly, I know I got emails about it. I'm not sure if anyone else did. Please, if you're going to put our email addresses in there, do us the courtesy of copying us on that, so when we get that first email, we know what we're talking about, because we had no idea that this went out. So a couple things that I do want to clarify there. I am neutral on these scooters right now. I want to make sure we do what's best for our residents and for our businesses. And I'm hoping we can reach a compromise that we can do that. Couple things that I just want to clear up is that there would not be any lawsuits against the city. Second thing I want to clear up, it said 30 miles an hour. I believe Attorney Carey said the state statute said they cannot go over 20 miles an hour. In speaking with a couple of people that are vendors of these, they go about 10 to 12 miles an hour. So that's a big difference from 30 miles an hour that was sent out. So, you know, again, our residents are getting that picture in their mind. They should be coming here tonight and get the accurate information. It says about a lot of them being just left everywhere. I think at the beginning, when they first came here, that was the case, that they were left in a lot of different places. As we had spoke before to Mr. Root, what they do now is they have a GPS. So if it's left anywhere other than a pickup or drop-off point, they get notified of it. Also, they are charged a $50 fine for dropping it off at a non-location. So I don't think they're going to drop them off too many times, incurring that $50. Had a conversation with our chief, and like anything else, you know, we have gotten some complaints about, you know, riding here, doing this or that, the same as we would with skateboards or bikes. So again, when this goes out, you know, I just want to make sure that our residents have the correct information. So now that I've said that, we can talk about anything else. I know one of the other things that I do want to bring up, I talked to one of the commissioners from Daytona, and I thought for sure it was supposed to be on their last agenda item. Checked the agenda, it was not there, and then I listened through the meeting and never heard it brought up. And then when I checked with this council person, they did not talk about it last Wednesday. So I just want to clear that up in case anyone...
I can actually speak to that, because
Okay.
I talked to the city attorney, and he said that that's been put on hold because of the transition from one city manager to the next.
Okay, so it will be coming up in June
It will be
time.
coming up at some point, but it hasn't yet because due to the transition.
Okay, and I think he's due to take over June 1st, so like sometime in this
So
summer.
After
that.
they
Okay.
do it.
All right, so we're open to discussion, whatever anyone wants to say on this. It's on the agenda for a discussion.
Well, to be honest with you, let's see what the city of Daytona Beach does. I mean, after all, they're going to be the largest supplier of those units and probably the biggest demand there, and then we'll kind of see how, take their lead, kind of see, at least take it into consideration.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think what Mike is saying is that if Daytona shuts them down, where are they gonna go? They're gonna come here. And now the problem.
I don't know if I want them to come here.
Group.
Yeah, so that's a big,
Numbers would increase here.
that's a big influencer for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and remember, we want to keep in mind too that these scooters are legal on the streets. The only control we have is not letting them be rented in our
Madam
city.
Mayor, why are you so dug in on this?
I am not dug on this.
You are clearly dug in on the side of scooters. Why is it?
I am absolutely not dug in on it. I have a problem, Rick, when someone puts out incorrect information like that.
That is small potatoes in the scheme of things. At the end of the day, whether they go 6 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, or 30 miles an hour, they are dangerous. You have a year and a half of Daytona experience where the council were supportive of this, that are going now and doing a complete and total turnaround because of the mess it has caused.
And tell me exactly what that mess is. I mean, if I have not gotten any complaints, the chief has not gotten any complaints, explain to
I'm
me.
not talking
what
about Daytona, I'm talking about Daytona.
Okay.
Daytona, who did this for a year and a half as an experiment, who were completely in favor of it, are now reversing their position because they're caught with a lot of complaints.
Okay.
So let's see what they do.
That's exactly what we're going to do.
But be open-minded to both positions,
Oh,
because you
I'm
clearly are given the
No.
I'm sitting next to you, you're clearly given the impression that you are in favor of motor scooters.
Okay. I would not like you to judge what my feelings are.
I'm entitled to my opinion, Madam
Okay,
Mayor.
all right, but you don't know inside of me, so you
Okay.
absolutely cannot. I have a problem when incorrect information is given out, and this is not the first time it happened. There was something else a couple of months ago. So I was just saying, that does make me very mad when I not know what the email was that I am getting,
Whether it's
that I'm
going 15
blindsided.
miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, or where it's left off and where it's not left off, the big picture is we have an elderly population that I don't believe wants to have motor scooters zipping by at every turn. So if we can police it, we should police it. I completely agree with everyone's position here, that we should listen to what Daytona has to say because they've got the most experience with it. And I don't know why you're throwing your body in front of this.
I'm trying, I am absolutely neutral.
I hope so. I hope so.
I am absolutely neutral.
I'll take
on
you at
this.
your word, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two people that do want to talk on this. Sandy Cook, if you want to come up, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I want to say I have not read the email, so these are feelings of my own that I've gathered from the meetings and so forth. According to Google, the average age of residents in Daytona Beach Shores is 66 years old. In many cases, cataracts are age-related, first appearing when a person is in their 50s, but not affecting vision until after age of 60, causing cloudy, blurry vision, a distortion of vision that makes objects appear as if you're looking at them through a veil. According to the National Eye Institute, more than half of the seniors 65 years of age have some degree of deteriorating eyesight. Scooter safety, this is, I found on the website drivingskillsforlife.com, but there were many. You're supposed to wear a helmet. You're supposed to ride scooters on a smooth paved surface without traffic. Don't ride on streets and surfaces with water, sand, gravel, or dirt. So we're at the beach and we definitely have sand and all of those, sand and water. Don't ride scooters at night. Scooters are just as dangerous as motorcycles. The most common injuries are cuts, fractures, head injuries, which can be severe. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children under the age of 16 who are too young to have a driver's license should not operate or ride on motorized e-scooters. The scooters are great on college campuses and cities that offer bike lanes. They've been very successful in Panama City, where the average age of the residents is 40 years old. This is according to Google. Also, Fort Lauderdale, where the average age is 42 years old. We not only don't have a bike lane, but on most days, there are large moving trucks occupying the right lanes, moving the condo owners' furniture in and out. It seems only two groups could benefit from these scooter rentals in the shores. One of them are the scooter purveyors who have spoken at the last several meetings, and of course, the attorneys that will litigate the lawsuits that will come from the injuries. There's no evidence that a family's vacation experience will be enhanced by scooter rides. And then in one thing that you said about laying them down when you're done, you need to contact Bob Davis, who is the CEO and the president of the Hospitality Lodge. I have it on my phone, but I didn't have a chance to write it, to make a copy for you. And he said, when you rent a car and it runs out of gas, you can't just leave it on the highway. So that's his image. No one, he hasn't come to the meetings or anything. That's his image of the scooters that are laying around unattended. A friend of mine, I see that my time is up, so I just have one more comment. A friend of mine, he is in favor of them, and he goes to Fort Lauderdale, and he said the difference there is it's very busy. So like, he'll park his outside a restaurant, and then when someone else is finished with their meal, they'll go get on it. And I don't think that we have the amount of residents to even make this project successful here, just based on his comments. So I feel like if we're going to err, it should be on the side of caution.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Rosanna?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I happen to be the person who sent out the email as president of the Political Action Committee here in the Shores. I feel responsible to let the residents know what's going on. As far as information that's incorrect, I will read what I wrote, and I believe maybe the only incorrect information is the 30 miles per hour. What I did read was this: our residents are mostly seniors unable to move quickly as scooters zoom down the streets, or hear them, or see them. 10-minute video training by the merchant on how to operate. Scooters are mainly driven by unlicensed persons and under the age of 18 years old. Scooters are left unattended on our city streets to be collected by the merchants. Scooters are driven in the middle of the road, interfering with traffic. So I believe all that is accurate information. Scooters can reach almost 30 miles per hour and driven by one person at a time, and some have seemed to be driven by more than one person. So that may be untrue or whatever, but to be determined. I am personally almost got hit crossing the street on my bicycle going to Van Avenue Park. As far as the liable, the city, that is also to be determined. I'm not really sure we have an attorney here. We'll just see when somebody gets hurt and who's going to get sued, etc. I don't believe that if we do have that, we have to have our law enforcement policing these issues. I believe they have more important things to do. I believe this is not in the best interest of our residents, but in other interests, hoping that City Council takes this in consideration and uses better judgment not to proceed with this standing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one other person that wants to speak on this. Is it Kadar Salam?
Hello, Precinct Council members, Madam Mayor. My name is Kadar Salam. Just like she said, I am actually one of the co-founders and the president of operations of GoX. I want to take the time to kind of come up and address some of the things many people have mentioned and some of the concerns which are rightfully in place. Obviously, I don't think scooters are the safest vehicles out there for sure. I do recognize that there is some safety concerns that need to be addressed. Speed is definitely, right now our scooters do run between 12 and 14 miles per hour. We can probably even bring it down even more. These vehicles are run on whatever speed we would like them to, and they can also run at different speeds at different locations. So let's say you guys do not want any scooters to be operating on the beach, we can restrict them from operating on the beach through a geofence zone. We have many technological features like that we can still implement that could help a lot with the safety of these vehicles. We recently released a new update where you need to be 18 years of age to even see the app on your phone. So this is verified through the Google Play Store and the Apple Play Store. So that's how we're dealing with underage riders. We do know that's a concern that many other cities have had, not only the Daytona Beach Shores. The main problem with that is when a family's out here with their kids, usually a family will rent a bunch of scooters and they'll be giving them to their children. And sometimes they go unsupervised, and obviously that looks very bad on us when we have a 16 or 15-year-old riding one of our scooters down A1A. Doesn't look good for us, obviously doesn't look good for the city. We spoke a bit about injuries. Luckily, so far, as Mr. Rick said earlier, we've been operating here for about a year and a half now, and luckily with this the year and a half, thank God we have not had any deaths. for any serious injuries. And by serious injuries, I mean no broken bones, no surgeries, anything crazy like that has to be reported to us. We do have insurance policies in place that are in place to basically protect us, protect the city, and protect the riders from any kind of injury. We have actually four different types of insurances, and we have one specific one that helps us with. It's called an uninsured motorist insurance, which which basically covers the rider. Let's say a car hits a scooter rider. This insurance will cover the car, the rider, and anyone involved in the accident. And we also have an indemnity letter that goes out that shows that we indemnify the business, the city, and the customer in case of any accident. But luckily, so far, we've been operational now for 3 years, in Daytona Beach Shores for a year and a half. We haven't had any lawsuits or any issues we haven't been able to resolve immediately like this. Those are some of the few things I want to point out. And also, if you guys have any immediate questions you'd like to ask me about our capabilities, I'd be more than happy to answer them as well.
Can you tell me why you've got the problems in Daytona Beach that you have?
Definitely. We started off in Daytona Beach a year and a half ago, and we started off on a great foot. We were specifically dealing with some commissioners over there and trying to make things work. I was actually introduced to many businesses through the commissioners over there that wanted to see us succeed, which was amazing help from them at the very beginning. Moving forward, and with all these updates I just mentioned to you guys were with the help of the City of Daytona Beach. We only implemented them because the City of Daytona Beach told us to, and we've been pretty proactive in doing so. Fast forward, a month after that, the city basically issued and had a commission meeting exactly like this that said they were going to issue an RFP that's going to have a structured process for vendors to apply, be vetted, and the city would go ahead and pick a vendor. A month after, and it's a bill that passed in a meeting we were present at. And a month after that, the city had a meeting behind closed doors and decided to basically to cancel that RFP and didn't want to move forward anymore without any kind of public hearing. Didn't tell us anything. Our law firm just told us that it looks like they want to ban scooters completely outright in Daytona Beach Shores, and primarily because of safety. Even though we implemented all these other features like geofencing, age restrictions, dropping down speeds, and all these other stuff, they were not very receptive to them. Why? I'm not very sure.
The reason is because consumers, residents, and businesses complained about it. That's the number one reason.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's some complaints.
The reason nobody's complained about it here is because it's not widespread. But a year and a half from now, people will complain about it just like they did there.
I'll be honest with you, Commissioner. In Daytona Beach, we only have 5 locations live. When we were actually live there, we had 5 major locations that basically did everything for us in Daytona Beach. In Daytona Beach Shores today, we have close to 20 locations. And between 5, and each location has between 5 and 8 scooters, depending on demand, obviously.
And do you run these in Ormond?
We do.
All right, and where are you currently? Can you tell me how many locations you have in Ormond?
We have about 8 locations in Ormond. We're also in Flagler Beach, and we're also in New Smyrna.
Okay, and why so many locations in the shores? I mean, Ormond's so much bigger than we are. Why would you have 20 in the shores and only 5 in Ormond?
Definitely. A1A is a great place to just be moving up and down the road. Obviously, the beach access is a huge plus for our riders.
Ormond has a beach as well, right? Beach.
Correct.
Ormond has a beach as well, too.
Correct.
Between Daytona, to the mayor's point, you've got 8 and 5 is 13, and we have 20 in a city that's got 4 miles and a quarter mile wide.
Correct. So,
a lot of quick marts here, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, all these locations are renting out scooters, right? So there's demand. There's demand, and these locations have almost all of them have made over $20,000 since we've already started. We've distributed over $300,000 in Daytona Beach Shores by itself since we started a year and a half ago. That's not, across all of Volusia County, we've distributed $500,000 as of today to local businesses that, help thrive during a pandemic, which not very businesses in other states got the opportunity to have. So we're grateful to be here, and we want to work with the city. We want to work with the business owners to make sure that this is a benefit for residents, for businesses, for tourists that come into town, and we want to work with you guys to see where is the compromise, what it is you guys want from us to do to make this a benefit to the city and to the residents of the city.
I want to go back to that Ormond again too. So is it, we want an honest answer here. Have you gone to several retailers there and they just chose not to have your product, or, why again?
Daytona Beach Shores has just proven to be high demand. We see way more riders coming out of Daytona Beach Shores rather than Ormond Beach. I mean, we have some great locations in Ormond Beach, mostly gift shops, some hotels like the Chateau Mar, but primarily over here we have bike rental shops, golf cart shops, a lot of rental businesses that are in the rental business. So it really makes sense for us. On top of that, hotels is a great spot for these vehicles to be placed, because not only are we keeping them off the sidewalks, but they're on private property where a family, a couple, anyone can come in, rent some of these scooters, go see the city, and return them back to a designated location when done.
And am I understanding, did I hear you correctly? So was it previously, or as of now, you have to be 18 years old to rent one of these?
This has been done almost 4 to 5 months ago now.
So if my 16-year-old granddaughter has a driver's license and a credit card, she cannot rent this?
She will not be able to see the app even on her phone. Not only, well, obviously if she gets somebody else's phone that's over 18 and is able to download the app, then that's a whole different story. But herself, on her Apple or Google Play Store, it will verify her age through that and will not even display our app in front of her.
There were two kids on A1A by the miniature golf course. One child couldn't be more than 8 years old in the middle of A1A. It was 2 days ago.
I believe you. I believe you, and it's happened.
Most of the people I see riding them are definitely in maybe 10, 12, 14 years old.
So is that what happens? The parents rent it, and they're over 18, and they have the app, and then the control leaves because they can let their child. Is that correct?
And this is an issue we've also seen in Treasure Island. We're also on the west side of Florida where we're operating in Treasure Island. This is a recent issue that's also been brought up, and we also had to explain this to the city and telling them that a lot of times, and most of the times, is the riders are with families, and when a family is out on vacation, under their supervision, at least they think that they're under their supervision, they feel okay with renting it from their phone and giving it to them. Now, as of our meeting with the city of Treasure Island 2 weeks ago, they said they want to address this issue, and we basically added more wording and beefed up our communication on the app to make sure to remind parents that you cannot rent out the scooter, you can't rent the scooter and give it to someone other than yourself.
Excuse me, did you do business in Panama City?
Sorry,
Oh,
sorry for that.
Did you do business in Panama City in the last 4 years?
We did not, sir, no.
They have banned rentals, as you probably are aware.
I did hear some issues in Panama City as well. We didn't really explore that market at all. So I would really.
I don't think there's anybody in the right mind that would make a decision where they go on vacation and what hotel they pick based upon whether there's motor scooters or not.
You may be right, but I think it adds a lot of value for you to show up at a hotel, and now you have a cheap and easy source of transportation to go see a city as big as this, do multiple things in one day.
The city is 4 miles long.
It's covering it, walking 4 miles is pretty hard. It'll take you a long time, I'd imagine, very tiring as well. I think it's a new way to get around. It's an electric and green way to get around. It's cheap,
It's a
easy.
dangerous way to get around, sir.
There are some dangerous factors of it. I do agree with you. But I do think that with correct regulation, correct policy, and us working together, I really think we can come down to a compromise where we can decrease speeds even more, maybe decrease the amount of scooters, maybe work on operational times. There's so many things we can do that will make it safer, not the safest vehicle out there, but I think it's also safer than having drunk people drive their cars back from bars and potentially hit someone. Today, Daytona is very well known for its bike week. And every year, I'm not sure how many deaths happen every bike week. We can't ban motorcycles, can we? And then that's definitely what I'm not applying here, but I'm saying there's a lot of dangerous vehicles out there, and way more dangerous than scooters. And I just think that it's a new vehicle we're working with for sure, because technology is so involved. There's a lot of things I think we can do, and I think this is a perfect way for us to work together and come down to a reasonable decision.
Well, I think we've decided, unless we have any other questions, after Daytona has that meeting, because as you can understand, that would have an immense effect on us.
Yeah.
If they can't get them there, they'd come here. But I just want to clarify one more time, and Attorney Carey, if you can answer this specifically. So if Daytona bans them, if we ban them, that is, we're banning the rental. So someone could rent in Ormond, drive down here, or someone can buy their child, grandchild one, or bring it with them while they're on vacation, and nothing can be done about that. Is that correct?
They are a street legal vehicle under the laws of the state of Florida.
Okay, so our control would be the rental of them.
Yes, and that's clear under the Classy Cycle versus Panama City Beach case, where Panama City Beach decided to ban the rental of the micromobility devices, and the court did uphold that ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
But can we control the sidewalks?
Yes.
Okay, so if they can't ride them on the sidewalks, we can also control how old they have to be?
The age is a little trickier because that deals with the operation. And one of the things that the court said in the Panama City Beach case was essentially, and I hate doing this, I'm going to read this to you so you understand where I'm coming from. That the trial court in the case found that the holding in Classy Cycles, which is a previous case that tried to impose insurance and helmet and vest requirements, was inapplicable because the ordinance at issue here do not address the actual operation of motor vehicles or disturb the uniformity of Fuller's traffic laws. We agree with the trial court. The ordinances at issue here do not regulate the method of driving or attempt to apply penalties for improper driving behavior in conflict with state regulations on the same subject. Unlike the ordinances of Classy Cycles, these ordinances do not attempt to regulate conduct or behavior while driving or impose additional requirements in order to drive on the streets. So that's the language the court used in upholding this regulation, which was the regulation of the rental itself rather than the operation. And I think if you go beyond the rental and into the operational matters, you can see a little bit.
Vice Mayor Lindauer, if I may, I'm not the brightest guy on the planet, but I think I'm bright enough. I will tell you that if we eliminate the rentals, we eliminate the problem.
Oh, there's no doubt.
There is no doubt about that. We're not going to prevent somebody from going to Walmart, Vice Mayor, and buying something. But having said that, those children and those families that are buying in Port Orange and buying in the neighborhoods of the suburbs, they're riding those scooters in their suburbs, just like they ride their bicycles, back and forth and back and forth. You're not going to have a preponderance of folks taking those motor scooters that they buy in Walmart and running them down Daytona Beach shores. The problem that we have is the sheer rentals, and this gentleman, I commend you for your honesty and your frankness, to be perfectly candid with you. I have a lot of respect for you. He's saying that you've got 8 in Ormond rentals, 5 in Daytona Beach, which is 13, and we have 20. So the problem and the preponderance of problems that we're going to have in our city is the rentals. If we eliminate the rentals, we have eliminated the majority of the problem.
I understand that, and all I'm trying to do is walk the middle ground to try to find out if there is a way to do it without, but I think you know from my past experience and the conversations that we've had that I have a big concern about these things because I experience it. When I'm walking on the beach, every day I walk 4 miles, the tide comes in, I come up on the street. I get up on the street, I almost got whacked the other night with a bike. The bike was doing, I'll guarantee you, at least 20 miles an hour.
Sorry, is this our?
No, a motorized bicycle. Came up from behind me, didn't say a word. I could feel the breeze from the guy on the bicycle. The sidewalks are not that wide. I also see young kids driving 2 and 3 wide, racing each other on the sidewalk, and I am concerned that they come up from behind people and give no warning. Somebody's gonna have a heart attack when these people all of a sudden come up behind them and they don't know what's going on and all of a sudden they freak out. So the bikes do scare me. I'm trying to find if the rest of the council wants to allow them of how much we have to restrict and what kind of safeguards we have to put in place. So I am still in the middle, but I am definitely afraid of these things.
Let me ask you, did you give revenue numbers? I mean, the number of outlets doesn't mean a whole lot. It's really a total number of bikes that or scooters that are rented. Did you go over some numbers of bikes rented or revenue? Daytona, Ormond versus the shores? Even though we have more outlets, do you get more revenue from the shores?
Recently, I want to say because we did a bit of business development work around January, and we added about 3 or 4 locations to our network. Now Daytona Beach Shores is definitely one of our more active markets for sure. We are not operating in Daytona Beach. We do not deploy any scooters in Daytona Beach, but sometimes riders will be crossing A1A to get to Ormond Beach, whether or New Smyrna it was. Sorry, what was the other question about revenue?
I'm just trying to get a handle on the number of scooters that are rented, which is revenue, however you want to say it, in a period, kind of in a yearly or monthly or whatever, comparing the shores with Daytona Beach with Ormond Beach. I mean, we know the number of outlets, or you've said, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the number of scooters rented.
Definitely. So I can tell you right now, in Volusia County, and that's covering from, and I can name the cities real quick, from Flagler to New Smyrna, Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach Shores, we don't have more than 180 scooters currently deployed. At one point last year when we first came in, we had 230. We've since then we've dropped the number of vehicles, and we've also changed our vehicles as well. We have a very specific, because we're using these vehicles here because they have a swappable battery feature, which allows us to, which makes operation easier for us. So it's the locations is a bit deceiving, maybe that you have that we have 20 locations. That means we have 200 scooters in Daytona Beach Shores. That's not the case.
How many do you have in Daytona Beach Shores?
That's a good question, Commissioner. Sorry, Mayor, Madam Mayor. We currently, I can't tell you off the top of my head, just because these scooters jump from one location to the other. At some day, a location may have 6 scooters. On another day, they may have 4. So at this point in time, I'd have to pull up my app, and I can pretty much tell you.
But I think what Commissioner Bryan is trying to say is, even though we have 20, do we have X amount, and Ormond only has 8 locations, but they might have just as many because they might have 20 at each location?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what he was asking, but I'm not sure.
It's the number of scooters really didn't matter more than the number of locations as far as if you're trying to determine the traffic,
Definitely. So the Ormond Beach Welcome Center, if you guys are familiar with that, we deploy 15 scooters over there at a time, just because families of 6 and 7 come at a time and pick them up and leave way faster than we can supply the location. So for places like that, for instance, outside of Daytona Beach, yes, we do have a location that has 15 scooters.
What's the most that you have at any location in the shores?
That's we haven't gotten over 11 or 10, I think, is the most we've ever gotten at any location over here.
And Richard, I completely disagree with you. The number of locations matters significantly. I'm from the Verizon and AT&T, so is the mayor. I can tell you right now, number of locations matter. And today it starts at 2, and tomorrow it's 10, and the next day it's 11. So there's an expression when you're building an indirect distribution network, you don't want to be able to swing a dead cat and not see one of your buildings leased. So I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, let me finish. It's a numbers game. This is indirect distribution, and it's a numbers game. So if you have the most locations, the odds are very good you're going to have the most scooters. It's not definitely holds true, but if you're a Verizon and AT&T executive like the mayor and I are, I can tell you right now, it absolutely holds true over time.
Sorry, go ahead.
It would be easy enough to get the numbers, and we could see whether.
That's today. It's today, Richard. It's today. It doesn't matter. A year from now, it can be completely different.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's. Are you the only vendor? What's the name of your company?
Sorry, can I just answer one of his points? I just wanted to clear something up over here. Every location we have is a pickup and drop-off location. So the reason why we have so many locations is because you cannot drop our vehicle on the sidewalk. We make it as accessible as possible for a family to be able to go grab an ice cream or go watch a movie. So the locations across.
I understand that. I completely agree with you. Richard's point was that the number of locations don't necessarily dictate the number of scooters, and that's simply not true. I would argue that the number of locations over time will dictate how many scooters are actually rented out.
Well, I think there's two sides to that coin, because some locations...
There always is, but as a general rule of thumb, if I've got more locations than the next guy, I'm going to have more distribution.
Well, not if your location doesn't have enough foot traffic as the next guy,
Why do 20?
because it's an additional pick-up drop-off location.
Every location is another, exactly, that's my point.
I think
You'd have 30 if you could, I can't blame you. I mean, that's the business you're in.
you had 30 locations and only 5 of those locations had scooters. Where's the issue here? Because, like I said,
Today it's 5, tomorrow it's 15, sir.
That's what okay, so we're talking about tomorrow. I'm talking right now.
I'm talking about tomorrow, because that's what Daytona Beach did. You had your chance in Daytona Beach, and all of those commissioners were in favor of it. They were in favor of it big time, and now they have reversed their position because they've seen what happened in a year and a half.
And what has happened exactly?
Complaints. That's why they want to ban you.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's complaints. Like I said, there are definitely complaints. I'm not disregarding any of these complaints. Like I said, with a new business in town, and especially our nature of business, you may have some complaints, but there's so many things we can do together that would decrease these complaints and come to a compromise where both the business owners, the city, and us, everybody could win, and provide a safe and easy and affordable transportation option for everybody.
Well, according to the newspaper article, which may or may not be true, you can comment, the city made all kinds of deals with you to try to rein in the problems they were having. Daytona.
Okay.
They claimed that they made a number of accommodations, that you made promises that didn't come true, and the problems persisted. So that's why they're at this point where they're considering just saying ban them, because they feel, apparently according to the article, they feel that they've bent over backwards to accommodate you, and that they still have the problems persisting.
I read that article. It was a pretty interesting one. They spoke to one business owner that basically supposedly got hit on the shin with one of our scooters. All these updates I mentioned to you earlier was because we've been working with the city of Daytona Beach, and we're very quick to give them these updates. And like I said, we were moving in a great direction with the city at the very, very beginning. Like I said, the commissioners over there were introducing me to business owners to partner with, which was an amazing gesture from them. And we were all on the same page. And I was personally, updating commissioners, making sure that everybody was aware of the updates we're making. And everything was kosher until we went to bed one day, woke up the next morning, and all of a sudden, with no explanation, the city had a completely different stance on this.
Let me ask you, what do you feel the reason is? I mean, we, feel it was complaints. What do you feel the reason was that they did that about face?
I definitely think there is a safety issue. This is I cannot disregard that for sure. Mayor, I'm not really sure I know how to answer that, but to be honest with you, it could very well be some business owners and some local business owners just didn't want us there, and it's nobody's ever approached us to get our opinion on how we can do things, and we've always been ones to, and as it should, we're the ones reaching out to the city, always trying to partner, always trying to figure things out. No media outlets ever reached out to us, asked us our opinion on what we've done or anything, and we don't want to get into this media war with the city where the city writes an article and then we write an article and then it's just like a PR battle in front of everybody for no.
That's why we're here trying to get full transparency from both sides. So I think what's going to happen, unless we have any other questions, we are going to wait to see what happens in Daytona, because that will have a very big effect on us. So.
Let me ask you, are you the only company doing business in Volusia County?
I don't think so, sir. I believe there's another company in Daytona Beach right now that's operating also this pretty similar from with our model. It's a business-to-business model, and there's also another company in Flagler Beach.
And how many companies are there nationwide? Just roughly.
Oh, you said nationwide or state?
No, I said Volusia County.
Oh, Volusia.
I just want to know what's your market share.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question, sir.
Well, you're not the only one in Volusia County. That's where I started. So, apparently, do you have the largest market share in Volusia County?
I believe so.
Okay, so and that's why you're here and the other vendors aren't, I guess?
Correct.
And I was just trying to get a handle on total, other cities, big cities are more lucrative, I would assume. And apparently there are a number of competitors in this space, right?
Correct, sir. And we're the only company nationwide that strictly operates B2B. So we've been, since the beginning of our company, we've always marketed ourselves as a business-to-business program. So because we originated, when we started this company, we started back out in California, and there were 4 or 5 companies out in San Francisco that were deploying scooters on the sidewalks, and we watched it all unfold in front of us. And we made sure that when we started our company, we wanted to make sure that we had nothing to do with that. We wanted to bring an affordable and cheap transportation to the city and not litter the streets with scooters. And that's why we have a 24-hour ops team over here that just solely responsible for keeping scooters off the sidewalk. With bigger cities, it's usually 3 or 4 vendors will come into city, and with companies like Bird and Lime, they won't partner with the city unless they're deploying over 500 or 600 vehicles. For us, we are considered, like our numbers are peanuts compared to, obviously they have way more funding from us, they've been in business for a bit longer than us, and it's a whole different ballgame you're dealing with when it comes to Bird and Lime, with the amount of funding they have at least.
Okay, well, we thank you for coming in today and answering some of our questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Tony, I'm sorry, I could not read your handwriting. Did you want to talk on this subject, or was it another subject?
Mayor,
if it's on this subject, okay. If it's not, then we'll hold it. If you could just give me the subject you want to talk about.
well, it was handicap. It had to do, I did wanted to touch on this scooter because, Madam Mayor and Council, my wife and I walk the beach, and I got to tell you, we've come close to getting hit by these scooters. Been dangerous. And I think I was listening to Mark Bernier several weeks ago on the radio, and he had said very strongly about how the Mayor Henry of Daytona Beach had said, certain words, get rid of them, okay? So I'm gonna just leave it. I think they're a hazard, they're dangerous. I think who's ever renting them out is not providing the information to the people who are renting them. You can't do this, watch how you are. There's people, residents walking on the beach. So it's come close. On that part, that's just what I want to say. Now the second part was, I observed something at Millie's restaurant the other day, and it has nothing to do with it. It's a fine restaurant. My wife and I have been there many times. But the other day we were waiting outside to get a table, and this car pulled up, and this man got out to help, I guess it was his wife or his mother, and she was in a walker. Now, bottom line is, he had nowhere to park. There was no handicap spot there. He had a handicap sign. When he came over, after he got his wife over to the door, he couldn't find a space because there was no handicap spots there. So I just asked Madam Mayor and you, the council, to look into that. Nothing against the restaurant. It's a great restaurant. My wife enjoyed, and I enjoyed very much.
Thank you. And, and I normally don't address comments, but I think what I've seen, coming from another city like a Georgia, coming from Ohio, there's plentiful handicap spots. When you get to an area like we are with our demographics, I think we have more handicapped people that require that sticker that, we need that. And I don't think Millie's is the only one that has that problem. I've heard that, Tony, from several different people at several different locations, so.
Yeah, I felt so bad for the lady because he, and I went up and I even helped her to get up there.
Thank you for doing that, but yes, okay.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Try to look into it. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go on to council comments. Mr. Politis, do you have anything for us?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I do. I wanted to really take the time to talk about this because it's last week. I want to compliment our city manager, a tremendous amount. Had a chance to take care of some of our employees at the lower end, and our city charter calls for us and the city manager to be able to do this at his own accord. And the city manager, the city staff who are here tonight went to bat for their people, and asked each of us as council members to come in and talk about taking care of the lower end people, bring them up to a decent wage. And I just wanted to say to everyone here tonight that today's environment is very different. It's hard to get people to work. You have people like McDonald's who have to give sign-on bonuses. You have Walmart's trying to get people. It's a very difficult environment because today, given the unemployment benefits and the enhanced benefits, most people just rather would stay home. A year and a half ago, when the pandemic broke out, I came into our city and I saw people with face masks digging in, working, maintenance workers working. No one took a back seat. No one made an excuse. And I just want to take the time to applaud the city manager for doing what you did, as well as the city staff. And I'd like to everyone to give the city staff a big round of applause for taking care of people.
Councilman Bryant?
Yeah, my opinion on this whole scooter issue is I would defer to the opinion of the majority of the citizens in the shores. And I think we've had less exposure than Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach has had less exposure than Panama City. And I think it takes a while for the citizens to form an opinion. The ones that have had exposure, it would seem they tend to not want them. But I don't think, if we took a vote and a lot of the people in the city voted, I'm not sure how they would vote at this point in time, just because a lot of them really probably don't have a strong opinion about them. But that's the way I would vote if I'm able to find out how the citizens feel, whether it's just a purely subjective opinion on their part or whether it's based on really hard data. I think the will of the people is what will matter to me in this, and even more so than what Daytona does.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Vice Mayor?
I second what Rick said. We all went through the presentation of raising the lower end. But when you raise the lower end, you have what's called compression. If you don't expand the pay scale, you find that people in the bottom are moving up to where people have been there for years. So I commend the city manager, the city finance director, and city clerk / HR person, Sherry. So my compliments to all of you for a job well done. The presentation was well thought out, and I thought it was very fair. And it could have been done without our approval, but I think that they wanted our approval and they got our approval. So.
Thank you. And I was going to say the same thing too. I'm always worried when we up the lower end and don't do anything for the tenure people, the people that are loyal to us. So everyone here can contest that they took in account everyone there. So I understand there was a meeting on Friday that you presented it to the employees and they were very happy. So I'm glad about that. Thank you for taking care of that. I just have two quick comments. Tomorrow I'll have coffee with the mayor at 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Nancy Maddox. She has someone coming to speak with us from the county about the turtle season that's upcoming, so I appreciate that. And then I'll be having our community service director, Fred Hyatt, talk to us for a little bit too. So I appreciate that. And then on Saturday, we are going to have, and I hope you've seen these brochures around, we're celebrating Armed Forces Day, and I think everyone knows how important the Armed Forces, the veterans are to every member of council here, and I know how important it is to our residents. So come out at 11 o'clock. We're going to have about an hour presentation, probably not even that long. Our guest speaker will be retired Brigadier General Ernie Adio. So he will be our guest speaker, and then I think our city manager is going to share a little bit. He has a son that is just, do you call it graduating from the Marines? And you can
Hoorah.
say, yeah, hoorah. Okay. So it's going to be a very fun evening, and we will have refreshments after that. So please come out. Okay. Do I have any other audience comments? Anyone else that didn't sign a form that would like to talk? Okay, if not, then I'm sorry.
Hi,
I'm sorry, you'd have to come up only for public record, and then if you'd state your name and address, and we do need a form filled out, so if you could do it later on, that'd
My
be
name is
great.
Cheryl Schleelburn from Michigan. I know Mel because I met him on the pickleball courts. I just have to say that I'm very grateful to the city for how they handle this whole community shores. It's a different kind of city. I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I moved here because you built pickleball courts. And I brought girls from Michigan. So I decided to buy this share, and I come here because I love Daytona Beach Shores.
Thank you.
So I'm very grateful to all of you for taking the time and investment for this community. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else that wants to talk? If not, any items recommended for the next agenda? I don't think we'll put the micro scooter on the next one, only because that city manager is not taking till June 1st, and by the time he gets there. But anything else that we'd like to talk about? Okay, I don't think anything right now, but I'm sure Sherry will have some items by the next one. So thank you all for your participation. For the people that are viewing online, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and the meeting's adjourned.